I've just sent her a text.
I know she had a sick boy in our last budget, maybe in the last one.
Just confirming you can hear us now, Ruben. We've unmuted Chambers. We're just off listening. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So no apology.
Here we go. Well, thank you. Morning, Councillor McNally.
Morning.
How are you doing? Just late. Yeah, no apologies.
We're already recording.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we'll get started then. I'll open up our Koukou Transport Committee meeting with our council prayer. Tēnui tātou, ka tukumata kia kaha mai ngā manga ko whiriwhirihia mō te kaunihiro o tiko o tika ki te mahi me te whakaroha me te haka mai I ngā pūkinga mo te mea tūri ai te kai apuri matatita. Ko tūkotahi ana kamutu ka whiki anō I te oranga o tō tātou rohe kakatauno I ngā take o te rohe te rei te tika me te pono. We ask that through our committee's discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Amen. Especially when it comes to roads. So we have all members present either in person or online. We do have Councillor Kappa who is running late, but we don't
need to.
No worries. Today in my mathematica is Ariroa, which is a fence move because it's just coming off a low reading room. So we'll see how we get on, but we'll jump straight into item 4.1, confirmation of previous minutes. That we confirm the minutes of our meeting held on the 20th of November and during demonstrated particularly by Councillor Vucic. Any commentary there? Any members pick up anything in our minutes? We'll put that to the vote. All in favour say aye. Opposed or abstentions? Motion is carried. We'll now move to item 5.1 on page 13. The recommendation is that our committee note the February 2024 reports from Port and Transport portfolio holders. So I'll get Anne to move and Steve to second. And then happy to pass the time over to you both to give us verbal reports on how your portfolios are going. Anne.
Well, thank you. So those of you who haven't seen it yet, the draft regional land transport plan is now out for submissions. When you read it, you might get a bit concerned to read that a lot of the data in here is historic. I just want to explain that this was a refresh of the 2021 to 27 plan. So a lot of the projects as they appear in here, for example, it talks about the need to build a two-lane bridge at Kaya. So a lot of the projects that you see in here already started or completed. Drop-in sessions have started in the Whangarei and Kaipara area. In fact, they might be concluded, public drop-in sessions. I can't recall.
Through the chair, I believe Whangarei was completed yesterday morning. Huggable was yesterday afternoon. I think there's one remaining in Mungford.
And because of the availability of Councillor McNally and I, ours have been moved out to March, which is good. Gives the community time to actually have a look at the plan. In terms of updates, as we know, the Minister has made the call not to fund the Transport Choices program. Our MP, Grant McCullum, has said that he's prepared to take a case to Simeon Brown to see if he will consider in part or in full. And the NTA are having a look at that now. I've met with Grant he said is take out the recreational elements and keep the road safety elements. And we might have a chart. It's a long shot. We're working on that. I went to Wellington to hear Grant give his maiden speech, and I was gifted the opportunity to have a few words with the minister. I didn't pitch for any specific projects other than just to keep Northland front of mind and say that we're here to help them, and he can reach out for any help he wants in regard to some critical decisions he has come out in regard to Northland. I'm sure you guys have been reading the Herald as much as I do, and there's a lot of kōrero happening at the moment about a $200 billion hole in roading and transport infrastructure. So we have some very hard conversations coming up as a country about how we're going to fund the infrastructure deficit. One of the concerns that I have picked up from the regional land transport plan that I've been talking to Steve Martin about is the fact that State Highway 1 between Koukou and Whangarei only has a Kiwi RAP safety rating of 2. Kiwi RAP is a measure that they use to determine the safety of a road, and yet despite that, upgrades between State Highway 1, Whangarei and Koukou are not included in the detailed 3-year program. So I sent an email to Steve, and he subsequently phoned me to discuss what my concerns were. And my concerns are that I am simply not seeing any rehabilitation work happening on that section of the network. He corrected me that they had done some work at Hikurangi and Pukeranui, but I said to him that I was very concerned about scabbing on the network. That's where it looks like it's peeling, and flushing on the network, which is where it's shiny, and these are traction issues. He's coming up next week. I've asked him if he's driving or flying. Driving, so that's really great. I've asked him to pay particular attention to the level of service on the network of Tauai through Moromaku, through Kawakawa Township, up Moriwa Hill, and then on to Kaikoui as you come into Kaikoui, and Waipapa heading north. I've also asked him if the minister who's coming up next week for the bridge opening was driving or flying. He wasn't sure. He was going to check. And I think, could you please draw the minister's attention to those pieces of the network as well, so he can have a look, because I'm now told that they're not funded until next year. I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet at the moment about mobility scooters. I just wanted to read something I sent to the Regional Land Transport Committee. Footpaths in terms of total mobility need to reflect the changing use in the shared space. For example, mobility scooters can weigh 226 kilograms. They can be metres long, 720 metres wide, and 1.2 metres high. Under the Land Transport Road User Rule 2004, there is no speed limit for scooters. However, drivers must ride on the footpath where practicable. Machines are now capable of reaching speeds of 40 kilometres an hour in a shared space with disabled users, children, mothers with prams, etc. So just draw that to my colleagues' attention, because I think there's some legislative fixes required here to ensure that our mobility scooters and electric scooters don't contribute to accidents and injuries on the footpath. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to is I don't think our planning department is quite connecting yet with the roading department. Steve and I were CC'd into an email from a ratepayer who's not happy that the footpath reinstatement on Kirikiri Road does not match the expensive concrete that we put in there originally. We spent a lot of money on building a flash Harry footpath that goes all the way up to State Highway 10. A developer's now come in and replaced it with something that's quite different. It doesn't look nice. We need to get connected in that space. We also have businesses, and I'm going to draw your attention to the vets on Kirikiri Road, where long wheelbase vehicles are allowed to park on a diagonal and in doing so completely obstruct the footpath. And so we are forcing our elderly and our disabled onto a road that carries 11,000 vehicles a day, because there's no way for them to get past. And we've approved a daycare, childcare centre to go in there. So we're now forcing children and mothers onto the road. And it just seems to me that I spend a lot of my time doing RFSs, managing these little niggly things that should be addressed at planning. They shouldn't come here. And I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Forth. Just quickly, in terms of the regional transport plan that is out for submissions, where can people find that and find information about our final drop concessions or how to have their say?
I've sent it to all of you. And it's
For members of the public.
on the
website
on
now.
our website.
Not ours, NRC's.
Is it not on our website? Needs to be.
We might look to having some comms out,
Yeah.
shared out across our own final district council communication with the drop concessions.
We can follow that up.
Thank you, councillor McNally.
Thank you. So Ian highlights a whole lot of road maintenance issues. Some of those apply to the highways. It also affects our network as well. If you look on page 4 of our responsibilities list, community committee monitoring is the first 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. So monitoring road maintenance schedule, road upgrade priority, contract performance and roading condition. I get talked to every day from different people about the condition of roads. Feedback from the primary production sector, re the Brindle enclosure, is they're really distressed by that. Huge financial impact. And the reduction in Northern net income, what we actually earn as a community, drops significantly because of the increased transport costs. So the farm gate or the forestry gate or the fishery wharf return is impacted by the additional cost. The focus of all the talk about the Brindle enclosure and their talk about was on tourism. And they're important as well, but they don't return as much as the primary production sector do to Northland. Just an example, oysters get picked here and they're trucked to Auckland and flown into fancy restaurants around the world. Going by Dargle, they end up soup. Pretty much, it's that bad. They've done some work on it, but that's good. The other one is road conditions. I started that, monitoring road conditions. It's the time of the year which is difficult, but we also do have high traffic numbers of families coming back to the north. And I've had, I've actually driven them as well. Henderson Bay, Tibony Tablelands, which goes out to Carry Cliffs, Madai Bay Road, really appalling condition. They really are, yeah. Wearing false teeth, I'd put them in a jar before you're driving. These are key tourism routes, and they also, they cart a lot of our really high net worth visitors into these areas. So the feedback I got from one particular carrier or transporter, taxi service if you like, is that these people come into places like Carry Cliffs after driving, landing in Kirikiri if they're lucky, and driving up here, and they won't invest because of the condition of our network. So there's back to maintenance, road priority upgrade, contract performance, road condition. These are all issues that have been brought up repeatedly at the Transport Committee as well. The other thing is RAM data, priority 1 issues. Priority 1 means it's a must fix. Without it's going to, the escalation of financial impact is huge. These numbers are critical. We have to focus on the basics of core maintenance, and hopefully the GPS, government, the new GPS will actually come out with that transfer into basic maintenance and a split between urban and provincial New Zealand. We don't need up here, we don't need the public transport. We don't have a rail system that's much use to us. We have a lot of wharves and things, but that would be nice to go back to shipping out of Opua and Unihi and places like that, but that's not going to happen given the string of oil that Tauranga and Ports of Auckland and Tauranga have on our export economy. That's me.
Thank you, Councillor McNally. As this isn't live stream, can we please have omit that figure that Councillor McNally said, because I don't want it to affect the procurement. We'll get a number that this will be tendering for the aim.
Just a quick question of the members there, one from me. Just wondering if you want to comment on that. And just on Steve, you mentioned these things, Steve, and I think you mentioned it as well. Maybe that's something we can do in a workshop, is looking at what we can do about general maintenance, like culverts that only cost a few bucks to fix, but cause thousands of dollars of damage in the winter.
I mentioned the $200 billion hole, and there's a lot of politics at play here. So National put out a press release, and then the opposition parties pulled them out on it, and so the tit for tat goes. But regardless of the tit for tat, there is a significant funding hole that's been recognised by everybody, Ministry of Transport, the Minister. We've applied for, Calvin, correct me if I'm wrong, is it a 76% uplift in funding?
Dawn, I believe it's somewhere in that vicinity, is that 76%? This 3-year cycle, but
I think it was closer to 54, sorry.
Yeah. but there's a significant uplift between 55 and 70%.
Okay. And there's 13 regional land transport plans in the country. A $200 billion hole came with a whole list of projects that weren't going to be funded. Mostly they're capital projects, including the ferry, but that ferry picked into Wellington, that comes out of the National Land Transport Fund, the Crown funds. Rail in Auckland, so they listed a whole bunch of projects that collectively add up to 200 million. I think my point is that when Waka Kotahi sit down with the 13 regional land transport plans, they are going to be significantly moderated down. There simply isn't the money. And what we're saying to the government is we need this uplift to get our network back into shape. And we need to be prepared for the fact that we don't get the money. So what does Plan B look like? And this is something Councillor McNally has raised multiple times in the workshops about increasing the ratepayer share to unfunded units. And that would be a very scary figure on top of 3 water and on top of everything else. So it's just, I don't have the numbers, I don't have the answer, I'm just keeping it fresh in your mind.
I think it's potentially simpler than that. We actually have to look at the contract maintenance programs and ensure that they are doing, the money is being spent in the right areas first. So rebuild, upgrade our roads as part of it, but just the basic maintenance has to be front and centre. And it's not at the moment. Thank you. No questions.
Thank you. Councillor.
No report, Steve. You mentioned Henderson Bay and Matai Bay. What's the story there?
Oh, they're just rough.
Right?
Just rough.
I was up Henderson Bay the other day. It was one of our best roads.
Yeah, I was there.
That's how bad our roads are.
That was on Friday. I was there, but I was there early on as well.
All right. The other thing is that, Anne and I get emails from both of you regarding Brent Derwin's highway. I actually clicked them off. I'm not interested in that. And it's just like the Mungmukas. I mean, let's say the Mungmukas is under NZTA. That's under the leadership of the government. And I'm more worried about our council roads. You're going to have problems with Brent Derwin's. We're having problems there. We're going to have problems with the Mungmukas. But that's not an issue for us, as far as I'm concerned. Our issue is our council roads. and how they are maintained. And, you know, I sit here and listen to that and I think, where do we go? That's the way I look at it.
Good. Thanks, Nettie. I think I've got a couple of points to raise based off the Google report. Last week, I was lucky enough to sneak in a meeting with Nicole Rosie, the CEO of Tahi, as well as Steve Mutton, and covered off a couple of points with you. One of them was the Transport Choices program, and the fact that there are a number of councils like us who didn't have our contracts signed, sealed and delivered, so had that funding withdrawn. The feedback I got was that there would have to be a significant amount of changes to what we had put up, so that the minister is not compromised by favouring or seen to be favouring a rejig of the same program of this council over the many other councils that also lost their funding. The advice received at the meeting was it might be to wait for the end of this month to see the new pots and where they lay and how we could rewrite it to that was then give the minister the political ability to see a rejig there. That was just a bit of feedback for us from that. Also discussed the speed changes, and of course we've passed our resolution to continue with our Kirikiri Bay of Islands speed limit changes. Officials' advice in that space was that we are likely to see changes, definitely likely to see changes around schools. That information will be forthcoming hopefully by the end of this month from the minister. And so the advice given there was to see if our own staff could fall back on those specifically, but for the rest, the minister's new direction around no blanket speed reductions and things like that. Our tranche as it stands is fine, and there are other councils that are also pressing ahead with their current tranches of speed changes. The government statement is expected, a draft is expected at the end of this month with a potential 2-week feedback period, which will then go back into the government spin cycle and get re-released. Officials are concerned in this space. It's going to be the latest GPS we've ever had to deal with. We have had this in the past before though, but that we will likely not know our funding until October this year. So I think we've put in $172 million for the farm as our share. Oh yeah, $172 million. My concerns that I relayed to officials was what I don't want to see with the longer wait is that we miss an entire construction season without knowing what capital projects we can press on with. The advice was to relay that information to the minister or to at a political level for us, but also to what we'll hopefully have is kind of like a wink, nudge, about what is likely to be more favourable. Our own staff should be able to see what is likely to be favourable within the pots and to choose from there so that capital works can still continue over the sort of downtime period. Something to that effect. I also discussed the Northland Expressway. And to Steve's point around just basics and routine maintenance and clearing culverts, what I was trying to tease out as officials was if we were to see favour towards new capital infrastructure, nation building worthy infrastructure that Northland needs, that wouldn't be to the detriment of also the funding that we need to just get our roads back to standard for the roads we have. The advice I got was that there are different pots that funding is allocated towards, and that it is likely that anything that we see in there will be funded separately through like a new roads of national significance program through the central government. But right now, we aren't in the know until the draft GPS is released at the end of this month, so we'll be keeping an eye out for that. And that is, I think that is, thank you to our transport portfolio holders for their Google reports. With any other members that have any questions or concerns on that? All right, with that, I will, sorry, Councillor.
I think Tamati and Felicity have, we've got our hands raised online.
We'll just get our GGs to keep an eye on that. We'll go to Councillor Foy first.
Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you to our committee chair and to Councillor Court, and in particular to you, Moko, as I mean, for going down to speak to Wakakotahi in person. In terms of the matters raised, I have to say I completely agree with Councillor McNally and his back to the basics proposal about concentrating on base course strengthening. And so that's the actual pavement depth of the road. And also the matter that I'll continue to bring up, which is drainage. And the matter about clearing culverts, ensuring our water tables are clear, is a huge issue that's been drastically underinvested in, and we haven't been concentrating on it, which is why I've seen the number of slips, as Councillor McNally has highlighted, particularly for our western area, which now has a significant number of slips that are actually preventing access to a large geographic area in the west. So in terms of monitoring and going forward, when we are setting the new budgets for our long-term plan and looking at the base course strengthening, which is a capital improvement, but also in terms of our metal roads in general, I think that needs to be an area that we need to concentrate on. Our local roads, which Councillor Radich has also highlighted, need to be concentrated on because they are going backwards and they will not be improved by the maintenance contract. A lot of our roads are now down to the clay for the base course, and the amount of time that'll take to get around all of our network with the huge scale of our 1,650 kilometres of metal roads is more than 10 years. I would like to see the amount of time and the amount of cycles it would take for this investment for our metal roads to get them up to standard, and also our drainage.
Thanks for that, Councillor Foy. Councillor Akina.
Kia ora, morena kia tata katoa. Tautoko the kōrero from Councillor Court and Councillor McNally, also following up with Councillor Radich as well. Bring the focus back to our local roads, although I do understand that, you know, if we're talking about import-export to the north and we are the food basket of Aotearoa, then we also need to keep updated on that. But I wanted to ask the question, and this had come up early on in our triennium actually, about the dust matrix, because we had requested for an update on the dust matrix because it doesn't actually fit our roads in Te Taitokero. And number two, we've been asking where are the weekly roading reports for north and south, so that's for Fulton and Hogan and Ventia, for maintenance work. We've been asking for the past year, and I'm not too sure, maybe I'm the only elected member that's not getting them, or who is getting them, if anyone is getting them, and should we have received those by now, because I can't see anything in my email list. Hoi nano.
Thank you. We'll pass over to Calvin, maybe to address some of those, Calvin.
So through the chair, the unsealed road seal extension matrix is on the agenda at a later item. So we can work through that then. With respect to weekly reports, I'll have to confirm with Bernard, but at the moment the reporting cycle is monthly included within the reports.
On the website that was meant to be getting done regularly. It's not.
I think we've addressed that
We'll
now.
address that with the monthly reports, but I will follow up in terms of weekly.
Weekly, I think it's slips. Recovery.
So the slip repair GIS website is in the final stages of production, so that is looking to go live either late next week or early next week to regular updates. But Councillor Rakana, I'll follow up in terms of with you offline in terms of the weekly report request and the background behind that.
Thank you. We'll go to
Sorry, can you just confirm if those monthly and in there the weekly reports have already been going out to any staff within council? Can you confirm that?
So through the chair, the monthly reports are included within the council agenda, and following the committee meetings, they're provided to the comms team who put them up on the website. We did identify a break in the process where a couple of months were not published to the websites. These have been fixed. So after today's meeting, Ken's team will publish the one that's in the next item in the agenda on the council website under the monthly report section. So
And can I request that those reports also be sent directly to all elected members, just to keep everyone updated on who, what, when, where, how, and then we're not missing out on any information when it comes to the roading maintenance schedules.
The agenda.
we can get
The reports, not the agenda, the reports on what works have been done, where have they been done, and by who. So that's by our two roading contractors, that's the north and south.
Thank you, Councillor Rakana. We'll work on that with Calvin and our GGs to get that sorted.
Just a question there, Morgan. For you, Gavin, Senior Royal Maintenance, who authorised Fulton Hogan to cut back on the grading of roads, on our local roads? And they said, you know, we're going to cut back because there's, you know, the corrugation, they can't do anything about it.
So
Who authorised that?
So through the chair, within the contract mechanism, there is a clause through the dry summer periods to do targeted grading with wet roll and grade, which is a higher cost exercise. And because of the detrimental impact of grading dry roads, that's a selected activity. That is also impacted, however, when we have water restrictions, which are coming into place. So it is not practical or achievable to grade a bone dry road. It actually does more damage than
Why I asked that question is because if we get a big rainfall, for instance, which we're going to get some next week, then the whole water table situation on our roads become a mess because you've got these little drains all across the road. And the other thing, I live on Spones Road. You know, people who live on Spones Road are just terrified because how bad the corrugation is on their road. And that's not the only road. Many other roads.
so through the chair, the only option available through
What's the other option?
the only option available through the dry summer is wet roll and grade, unless there is a heavy rainfall, in which case the crews come in with the moisture content and do the grading. So it will completely deteriorate the roads further and damage the roads if you grade them in dry conditions. They end up marbling and becoming worse after a couple of days.
No, we have not put that to the vote yet. Let's bring back to council for a right of reply.
Thank you.
We'll put that to a vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed to abstentions, the motion is carried. We'll go to item 5.2, which is our transport activity update for November and December operations report. The recommendation is that we receive these two reports, at which they will be published on our website. If I could get a movie for this. Anything in particular you wanted to highlight, Calvin? It is quite a comprehensive report, otherwise we'll just take it as read.
Just one point on page 20, I believe, of the report. So Through the chair, we have added there the expenditure year-to-date details and breakdown taken from the actual financial figures that are reported by FNDC Finance. As you'll see, 85% of the expenditure year-to-date relate to the three core activities of renewals, maintenance ops and emergency works. So the budget that is available is being focused on the areas of priority. I think referring back to the current bid for the next NLTP, within that bid, we're looking for 129% increase in routine drainage maintenance, going from 5.88 million to 11.16. So for an example, with those culverts that were mentioned, those culverts at a cost of 120,000, our total discretionary money for drainage maintenance across the entire district for a year is 170,000. And that is for all drainage maintenance, and that's due to the impact of escalation and all those things biting down on that discretionary funding. So the new submission highlights those issues. I think if we refer back to the drainage maintenance deficit paper that was presented to council, there is a significant backlog of not just low priority defects, but priority one defects due to their inability to fund the repairs. These are known issues. In unsealed nettling, which is the rehabilitation, we're looking for a 223% increase, which is from 6 million to 20 million to accelerate those rehabilitations. Now, keeping in mind that those increases are dependent on both the approval of NLTP, National Land Transport Fund money, but also the associated council local share. With respect to your point about the next construction season, under the current program, we will receive indicative funding from Waka Kotahi in May, which indicates what the current the maintenance operations and renewals funding looks like, and that will enable us to plan for renewals and rehabs over the next summer season. But until the final funding comes through and is matched up with the local share component, that's when the capital works and improvements will come in to being.
Thank you for that, Calvin. We'll go to Councillor Court.
Thank you. I just would like to make an observation that I don't want anyone to lose sight of the fact that we had a GPS that didn't give us, that moderated us down. But when I took over the roading portfolio from my predecessor, we had a GPS that moderated us down. We were asking for the funding and we didn't get it. And then we had 2 years of COVID lockdown, and then 11 bespoke years. Our network didn't deteriorate because simply the contractors through suggestion that the contractors were doing their job. Our network deteriorated because of a sustained loss of funding over a considerable period of time. 2 construction seasons lost, and then 11 of quite further events. In regard to the report, page 19, development application, I would like to request that we schedule for after one of these meetings a workshop on how the NTA and our planning department liaise over developments that are happening in the district, and whether we want to be the appropriate level of infrastructure investment from the developers. And the reason I want to raise that, and on top of the footpath issue and the parking issue that I've already raised, is a significant subdivision has been allowed to happen on Kidkiri Road. Kidkiri Road is our busiest road in the whole district. It carries more traffic than the state highway. It has 11,000 vehicle movements per day, and a whole new subdivision has gone in there. And from what I can see, there's some minor road widenings. So I want to sit down and understand what's going to be the minds of the NPA, what is going to be the minds of our planners. Have we got to focus about the roads? and you'll all be able to think of incidences in your little patch of paradise where you think we might not have got that thread quite right. In regard to the FMDC monthly report on page 22, I am unclear why the Kaitaia Awaroa project is on hold, other than to note on page 39 of the agenda, it talks about price realignment and hooperage. I don't know what that means. If someone can answer that when I finish talking, that would be great. So why is the Kaitaia Awaroa seal rehab on hold? The other thing that I wanted to raise is on page 32 of my agenda, and guys, I had to get a magnifying glass. I had to go and buy a magnifying glass. So I could read that.
Sorry.
And even then it was tough going. And this is in regard to
Oh, sorry.
temporary traffic management. And I was just a little confused, and this is not really my area of expertise, it's operational, and I accept that. I just want to say that it's in the report, so I read it. And my observation is that that we are reinforcing adoption of a risk-based approach to temporary traffic management. And then when I got my magnifying glass out, I thought that we had issued a stop work notice on people because their work access permit was expired, their paperwork was not complete, there was no traffic management on the side roads, and the safety zone was not long enough. And I thought to myself, is that really being a little bit pedantic, or are we actually on the money there? I'm not qualified to make an observation. I just pointed out because I went a little trouble to read it. I wanted to point it out. And the other one I want to ask is, why have no footpath renewals been carried out? Just says our crew have been involved in other work throughout the month of November. When I read that, I was a little concerned about whether or not, that's on page 81, whether we're taking our trip as in seriously. I'm on the road safety, the disability action group, and every single meeting, the number one burning issue that gets everyone upset is total mobility for those who use our footpaths that don't have cars, particularly those who have disability. And we hear about how they're tripping over and hurting themselves, or they're simply not able to navigate our footpaths. So we're in the construction season at the moment, and I just want some comfort that we're taking it seriously and we're fixing our footpath. So if someone could answer those questions for me, that would be great. Thanks.
Very good. Chair, I will answer the traffic management one and the footpath renewal, and then I will hand over to Greg for Kaitaia Awaroa. So with respect to the corridor access, even under the risk-based approach, there is a requirement to document your traffic conditions. So you still need to have a documented methodology of how you're mitigating the risk. In this case specifically, the site was not set up in accordance with how the approved plan was from either the traffic management planner from the contractor's side or as approved by council as the RCA. So just because risk-based approach means that you can take other mitigations and narrow the scope of the traffic management setup, but it still needs to be documented and set up how the site needs to be to make it safe. So in this case, it didn't match what was approved by either the traffic management planner on the contractor side or the approved plan by council. So risk-based is something we're transitioning to. What it means is you have more latitude to put in something more appropriate to the site. But it doesn't mean that you can just turn up on the day and put a few cones out. So there's still a process that needs to go through. With respect to the footpath renewals, that is specific to Ventia for 1 month. They are on track with their footpath renewals program for the year. So that was related to that month had diverted the approved. And I think Kaitaia Awaroa, which is a drainage renewals job.
It's a rehabilitation project. Our rehabilitation project, our budget is set. I suppose we've got a fixed amount of money what we do, and then set at the start of the 3-year programs, and then confirmed again down your plan. So we have to work within an envelope of what we've got. We don't know the total fixed costs until we get the detailed design done, and that happens within the year. So at the start of the year, we do all the detailed design after the geotech's all done, and the testing and the test pits to understand what we're going to build. So we have to balance those budgets. And unfortunately, I suppose just with the costs where they are, was we have to do it this year, but we have done enabling works, drainage renewals. We've done tree works in that to set it up, and the design's ready to go for next year. So it'll be the first cab off the rank next year, pending budget approvals in the process. But it is just a balancing of the money, what we've got, and trying to prioritise the works.
Can I just respond really? Our ratepayers have a passionate interest in roading. And when we were doing the agenda preview, specifically in relation to emergency works, I said that I was concerned that there's not enough information. You'll remember this. Okay. So if I was to pick up this agenda and I had an interest in Kaitaia Awaroa Road, I'd like them to be able to know from that agenda everything that they need to know. It's not just deferred, this is where we are in the process. And I know that's a lot of work to start. I think it's really important for transparency for our customers. When I was raising that around the emergency work, I drew everybody's attention to page 30. And I said, that doesn't tell me anything. So if I lived on Haranui Road, one, I want to know that council knows I've got a problem. Two, I want to know when I can expect to see some action on that problem. Carolyn, you spoke about the fact that you've been quite innovative in this space. And I just think it would be an opportunity for you to tell my colleagues what the UTA is doing in this space.
So through the chair, what we are implementing in the next couple of weeks after working with farmers like meeting is a GIS overlay map of all the remaining slips. That's the phase 1 and phase 2 slips that are in the Far North District. Each of those will be a pinprick on the map. And within that pinprick, when you click on that slip, you'll be able to see the current status of the slip. We're just working through putting those statuses in plain English rather than engineer speak. We'll have an indicative construction date, noting that some of those are out into the future. And we'll have, where possible, we're looking at adding the current photo of the slip. Now, those will be updated every time that the data is updated in RAM. That automatically does a nightly update to the GIS, so it'll be effectively real-time data. The other thing, following your feedback in the agenda preview, in the next monthly report, we have expanded this table to include some of that information as well. So in the January report, there is information on current status and anticipated construction date as well. So a lot of this is about how we can get a lot of very detailed information simplified out in a way that is digestible to the public and actually answers the question rather than raises more.
On-site signage.
Oh, sorry, yes, and the other one we're looking at doing is at each of the phase 3 slip sites is installing on-site signage which identifies that we are aware of the slip. It is part of the 22-23 emergency works program and directing them to the council website for more information about this specific slip.
Councillor Lucic.
Thanks for the report there. Just a few quick observations and some questions. I did note what Mandy mentioned before about the grading and driveway, which I was aware of that, and did wonder about rolling and water. But you've answered that. The question I've got, which you can just remember, is that we've been notified that certain things have been cut within that calculation. These 3 bullet points. And Can you list some of those things as well? So that's page 20. In the agenda. Okay, that's the bullet point, left on list of transport receiving council 20% of the terms of the allocated. So transport choices, and I'm just wondering what projects that been for us.
So through the chair, that was the Hunahiki Road, Kiri Road upgrade that was.
That was the only one.
And the other project was
Lady bus shelters.
yeah.
Thank you. The question, other comment on that, like, is that you mentioned 170K funding total budget, and this is there was culverts and various things. So it's a significant amount of money. So I do wonder, rather than having these buckets of money, and I've said this before, and that is, can we not look at priorities on what we actually fund? Because one of the key things is, you know, as you see on page 58, actually, with that water that went across and flooding, you know, that's a flood situation, so that's different. But unless we keep those water table culverts clean, it's going to result in thousands of dollars of damage, possibly even a slip and so on. So surely that's, you know, that's decision time. Surely that's a priority and it should be done. And so if you can comment on that, please. And I'm pleased, and I'll give you a positive. On page 58, I see your picture there in front of me. But on page 58, you see a before and after shot of surface flooding, page 57, before, page 58 after, I believe. And thank you very much for doing that. Why I'm saying that is because rather than just repairing the one for like and then coming back at it all the time, you fixed it. So you didn't try and stop the overland flooding, but you marked it. So yes, I note that as well. But if you can just comment on the priorities in terms of those key things that can result in construction error.
So through the chair, with respect to the funding, the GPS drives the funding allocation to specific buckets, while council is able to reallocate their local share however you wish to do it, so long as it's OPEX, CAPEX. The subsidy component that comes with it is specific to that activity, and that is a output of the GPS and an output of the guidance in the Ministry of Transport. When it comes back to the maintenance, drainage maintenance, for example, the drainage maintenance budgets, if we go back to the paper we presented to council about the impacts of escalation, the drainage maintenance budgets and every budget within the maintenance contract is made up of three components. So the first component is the routine lump sum activities. So for drainage, that includes clearance of culverts less than 0.5 cubic metres and other activities along drainage. The next component is cyclic activities. And the final component is the ordered works discretionary. Because of the unprecedented escalation, what has occurred is that the two lump sum components, or the lump sum and the cyclic, have increased, but the total budget available hasn't, which has compressed the available ordered works. That is something that before this cycle, if you look back on the maintenance contract escalations for the last 5 to 10 years, they've been in the vicinity of 1.5 to 2%. Cumulatively over this 3-year cycle, we're having in the vicinity of 27%, I think it's the latest count. So it's the structure of the contract that has been recognised in terms of when we move into future contracts, do council want to look at things like more measure and value and reducing the lump sum to have more control over where you target your items and things like that. So one of the things that the Field Force 4 review picked up was that the contract was appropriate for the time that was in and a stable economic environment. That's not where we are now, and that's one of the recommendations about looking at how that is refreshed to allow council to be more dynamic in their decisions and programs.
I just have a few things to highlight before we get a bit instructed. I know everything with rating is always issues, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight on page 17 in our road safety education program, those license pass rates. something huge to be celebrated. Us alongside Brisbane are a part of the pilot program. Everyone need to have specific funding set aside to be able to boost license passing rates across the district. Look at those rates there. That's something really to very much so be celebrated. And then just to be able to build on that first-hand experience that I had with some of the youth here in Koukou who were passing through our program through the Te Kotahitangi and Mahi Kaha Trust. This is like life-changing for families to be able to get a young person through to their full license before they leave school by the time they so that's really cool. Okay, that was my nawe. Here's my nawe. So on page 21. Just and sorry, I haven't kept up with community boards in this case, but and know this is from December. Risk of non-delivery. I get the safety improvement things, but I just had some questions about the footpath program. I know that for some of these, you know, it's from when I was on community board. So just asking what if there's an update in that space around some of these community board footpath programs that are in the red and
Through the chair, yeah, the footpath community programme, I suppose it's always a balance of the original budgets of what is there, and again, what the true cost comes through when we come through to the design. So the ones you're seeing there, maybe in red, are, I suppose, budgetary constraints of other footpaths coming before that have chewed up the budget, predominantly. We've got one package out at the moment is pretty much complete. We've got two other packages for the remaining two wards that are to tender at the moment. The other red risks in there are just will form, I suppose, part of the conversation of the next board works programme. It's just, yeah, budget constraints of just some of them have to make it quite expensive.
and just checking in that our community boards with this delegation have been kept
Yeah.
apprised of this information every step of the way.
Yeah, exactly. So we do go back and through this with and through the team just to update of what that is and get direction of do they still want to continue with that.
So through the chair, Elizabeth attends the community board meetings. I think the last full update on the footpath program, which looked at this cycle's and the future cycle, was either October, November last year. But she continues to attend the community board meetings to provide them updates on the program.
Excellent, thank you for that. And the penultimate one is on page 33. We've got the Hokianga period whose revenue is down on the previous year to the tune of around about $12,000. How does that contract work? So I know that our ferry is treated like a bridge and we can get funding for the contract. If we've got revenue down, is that revenue or is that costs? Because I don't think that the ferry pays nothing for itself. So what I'm asking, I guess, is that $12,000 or is it taken as a total over the year and it ends up balancing? If it is down, do we end up having to share further into what those payments look like, or do we claim it back from Waka Kotahi, or do they share overall?
Your worship,
mobilised to tell people to catch the ferry.
yeah, your worship, the ferry runs like a bus service. The ferry is subsidised, so the costs exceed the revenue we get from the passengers, and the balance is split between council and NZTA at your subsidy rate.
And for this one, that would be the 69.31% share.
Yeah, it's monitored, and the threat from NZTA is if the price gets too high, they may cap their subsidy rate. But in this instance, we've already spoken to them and said, well, because of the Mangamuka slip, they're causing part of the problem. So we've actually asked that 100% cover the cost and ask for more money as a result. Yes, that's something that young Aaron has approached the NZTA about. But it is, there's always a shortfall, and that shortfall is split between NZTA and council at the subsidy rate. The NZTA obviously they want to make sure that council was taking all steps to attract all the passenger revenue they can, and we do that. But current circumstances with
do the numbers fall within our contingency? because this has never come back to the table to say, oh, where do you find that shortfall money from?
Yeah, council, we budget that each year, so we can have an assessment based on historical. We budget for that shortfall. It's just less than what we budgeted this time around because of those external factors of the state high closure and the loss of tourism in total over the summer season.
Where do you find that money from? Because this is OPEX, so we're rated for a certain amount, we don't have enough.
It's funded from within council's overall operations budget.
So in this case, there's some money around. Okay.
So because it's higher, we go back to NZJ and ask for more.
But our first option is through.
Right, no, thank you for that lesson, I appreciate it. My last one, actually Anne covered it off, it was around phase 3 delivery, and please keep us in the loop around when we can expect this GIS information overlays to be released, and we can make sure that we do a song and dance for our people about what that actually looks like. We'll go to Deputy Minister.
Thank you. Where I start? I haven't got page numbers, sorry, so I'll be all over the place, but just touching on what's already been raised, that Kitty Road reinstatement, I've run into issues around reinstatements in the Wātea subdivision and in the Main Street Koukou, and there's legislation that says it needs to be reinstated like for like. So whether planners, going back to check that it's like for like, or the NTA, I think that needs to be followed up on. And when I observe the numbers of RFSs and the customer satisfaction, I'm just wondering if anybody is internally auditing how many RFSs actually come in through this door and end up at NTA, because the volume that is in those reports seems quite low compared to the number I personally get on roads, therefore what customer services at FNDC would be getting. So maybe Tanya needs to get back to us on that another day.
Through the chair, can I just respond to this one? The RFS numbers, we don't have our own system. These are council system numbers. So this is based on any RFS that is logged in council system. So these are straight out of councils.
Doesn't seem enough. So we need to rally the communities to lodge more rather than.
Can we have our staff just begin with the way that program based RFSs are put through, that they are tick box, so that does inform these reports.
And you were touching on it a little, Calvin, I forget the words you used, like the way the contracts are managed and funds are allocated versus what we're seeing, today. Somebody has a go at me about a road in Koukou, Waiomio, which goes alongside the bowling club. No one uses the road. It got a whole new resurface and everyone's like, oh my gosh, why didn't they do one of those, busier ones over there? So you were kind of touching on how it might be in the program, but it might not have actually needed doing.
Just to clarify, is that a sealed road?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's sealed road.
So through the
I
chair,
reckon they did the wrong road.
so through the chair, we can find out about that road specifically, but generally the he's described this when he was in his time previously, that the resealing activity is a preventative activity, just like painting the house. And
Yes.
the idea is to
Yep.
do it before the road fails.
And
And
what we're seeing is a whole lot of work happening that's not necessary, but it may be
Aesthetically
good for the contractor. And then any extra works that need to be done, when the money runs out, they have to bill us for.
through
That's what we've seen in previous years.
those programs, the reseal programs are developed based on network condition and they're defined by staff. So it's not the contractor choosing which road they want to do.
Okay.
Sure
that's
you want
good
that
to
one?
hear.
Yep.
Yes. And there's a lot of korero in the report on slips. I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a few years ago, the Waipare Gorge slip east of Koukou. Work got started and they have blocked the road and there was no portaloos on site. But there was a big massive fallout and eventually there was some engagement. There's a marae school and people that live there and no communication had happened. I just want to commend everybody at the NTA for learning from all the contractors, learning from that, and I was glad to hear at one of the events over Waitangi Week that Waikato Marae had been notified of the slip repair that was happening in Waipare Gully. Portaloos put in place, a schedule communicated and agreed with the people that live there and the bus drivers, and it's all going smoothly. So really, really nice to hear the good comms in passing rather than, the negative stuff that I usually hear. There's a page of pictures that has the Otarara Marae Road, and Councillor Research was talking to it as well, but we're seeing a lot of roads that are having this rock armouring and, a bit of rock sticking out on a road. Is quite alarming for me, especially having been involved in Koukou Street, who wanted to have rocks, as visual aids to slow cars down, and now we're using these rocks in the road, and I'm concerned about the, whether that is safe engineering. Anybody can.
So are you referring to the
Proposed that councillor Research highlights.
development of the Ford?
Yes, it was a Ford, but we're not just seeing it on boards, we're seeing it on slips that have been rock armoured as well, and the rocks, because you're losing road, the rocks are right up on the road, they're not just down the side of the bank in some cases.
So generally with the slip reviews, they have a safety assessment as well as the repair.
Yeah.
There's a approved methodology of and probably the strongest methodology of slips.
And just coming back to that risk-based approach, Anne mentioned it in a different context than what I was going to raise. The Recreation Road closure, I'm glad that you guys pulled that up, because some of the signage showing where it was closed was not even getting checked on a daily, basis. It was terrible. There's a kohanga along there. There's the cyclists trying to navigate along that road as well, and cars were getting on there and damaging their vehicles. Good job. But the signage was terrible. And finally, the awesome Fluffy Ducks event here supporting Springbank Fireworks, and I know how busy it can be here without traffic management. I really appreciate event here doing the road grading and spraying for Waitangi Day in the days leading up.
Haruru Falls Road.
Yeah, Haruru Falls Road, and the bush trimming so that the relocatables could come down the road. But I think everyone would agree that we would like to see them play a role in the traffic management of the whole day as well, please, if possible. That's me, thank you.
Through the chair, one of the complications with the traffic management of that whole day is that it involves multiple parties. Obviously the police and the organising committee, but also Wakatahi and yourself. So Fraser has already attended one debriefing session on that traffic management thing.
Cool.
So yeah, we're definitely looking at that for future events.
Steve? Sorry, Councilwoman Allen.
As this is a historic part, I'm just going to take a leaf out of page 81 where you refer to all the works. But so instead of telling you it's nearly 2 months old, it's 51 days old, this report. And then if I take you to, so it's historic, but I'll go through the history first, then I'll. Page 81, ordered works. You talk about wet roll and grades finishing mid-December. 214,309 metres squared. Was that 3.5 kilometres? 35.
I would need to, I don't know the calculation, sorry, so
I just think kilometres would be better.
Okay.
So it makes it sound a heck of a lot better. No, it's all right. I don't need a response. Thanks. Page 80, we've got, where is it? Recovery works. There's photos there, recovery works. And is that, so that's under recovery. That's a different funding model. And then on page 81, back to the ordered works. Is this charger not part of the lump sum?
the ordered works are the defects that are identified that are outside the lump sum that are then prioritised and approved on it, but they are unit rated, so they have a fixed rate for activities.
Okay, page 82, just over the page. We're talking about pavement visualizations. Now, Pipito Road completed. Did that include the second coat seal?
For rehabilitations.
I'd have to go back and confirm, but if it's second coat seal on the rehabilitation, usually we do it several months after the fact. So I'd have to go along. Check.
So you do the road painting, marking, and then you do the second coat, then you paint it again.
If it's got the painting and marking, it would have had its.
Can you come back to me on that? Page 39, you refer to Blue Road. And that's under sealed pavement and sealed extension. And under there on page 39, it says commence culvert replacements. This is back in November. Does that include developer contributions? Or are we just paying for that? That road's pretty flat, pretty good, compared with places like, there's a raft of them, Parapara, it's steep hill.
Through the chair, that is one of the unsubsidised seal extension sites.
We'll get to that under that. And then, so for more current things, can I have an update on Hee Stream Bridge and the Waipapa Landing Bridge? Waipapa Landing Bridge is seal break down the end above the timber deck. Is there a bit of timber flapping in the, not fixed properly? Seal keeps failing.
Up through the chair, Hee Bridge, yeah, has developed into, I suppose, a more involved project than what initially we thought. I think going from initial sort of bridge on that, it was minimal works that needed fixed that could be fixed in terms of keeping the bridge open. When the contractors were on site and established, they started to understand, I suppose, the deterioration of the bridge was a lot more significant. So we then had to step back, understand that, and then make a plan. So what it resulted in was instead of just some minor concrete repairs that could be done and plated over, we had to replace the whole bridge deck. So in doing that, I suppose then that got more complicated of actually how do we do that, when do we do that, and how do we keep it open, manage the access to Hee.
Has it fallen within financial delegations?
The bridge itself, it's managing it within the programme, I suppose, of what we've got in the budgets, and then working with our asset team to actually understand the cost of that. So we've got a fixed set that we would have in 216 for the bridges. So we have to balance that with the budgets that there and the work that we do then, say, under general bridge repairs would have to be reduced to balance this budget in here. That was the initial sort of thinking of we could manage that and going forward, but obviously with the auctioneering of how do we keep access open to Hee is again complicated it further, and obviously looking at the unsealed road and coming in with the back way or temporary bridge option. And I suppose
I'm going to quickly jump in here and not direct this at you or anyone in particular, but as Mayor of the Whānau, I have no oversight over the potential failure of a bridge that's going to close off one of our communities.
it's not potentially to I suppose that
Well, then you have to go and almost off the video tree.
the damage was greater than what we anticipated. It was load restrictions, speed restrictions, so we assess it on a weekly basis, but we didn't. The advice from the bridge engineers was it was fine if those assessments or those restrictions are kept in place, that the bridge can be fine for.
Do we have a matrix, or can we develop one with our communications team at a level at which if something could be on the front page or something is going to have a heightened community element with it, that we, unless our roadie portfolio has been kept in the loop on this one, that we are getting some, updates in this.
I drove it and climbed over the scaffold.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting lost in, I don't know why, I've left my glasses at home and it seems to be affecting my ears. Could you come a little closer and repeat that? Would you mind?
The bridge stuff, delaminating, the full deck replacement.
I got lost between which bridge.
Oh, it's Hee Bridge, I suppose, one of the bridges that accessing Hee was on our program, our long-term program to go in and fix. And we had let the contractor, it was done along with Matai, it was approved to do that through the Matai Bridge. We moved on to Hee Bridge, and then that's when the Steve Oliver contractor started to do the, I suppose that the investing, well, not the investigation, but chipping away at the concrete deck to replace the bits that had small irrigating. When they did that, then they obviously gone down into the slab itself. They then realised then that water has egressed into the structure, and the rebar and the reinforcing is more detrimental than degraded further than what was anticipated that you could actually see for just in a visual inspection. That's then resulted in us then having to put a hold on it and then getting a bridge engineer to say, well, what do we do with it? And they've come back and said, well, listen, like the damage is extensive. We have to replace the bridge deck is the best option. So doing that, then we've had to then have conversations. Well, okay, what does that look like? Do the design, get it ready, get it priced, and then look at, well, how do we construct that once the design is done? And with that, the only way to construct that obviously is remove the deck and build a new one. But then that's limiting access to the peninsula. So we were looking at options with that in terms of can we have an alternative access? Is there alternative access? And there was, but there was complications with the alternative access in terms of, I think it had been gated and then closed, and there was some issues we had to work through with the lobby way of getting that open, and that took a little while. We were then able, once it was open, to assess, I suppose, what condition our road was in and what the cost would be for the upgrades and that, and what would it be used? Could it be used as an alternative access? So we had to look at that. We've been looking at the cost of that weighed up against the cost of a temporary bridge to build while prior to allow us to do the work. So we've literally landed on the temporary bridge is the most cost-effective solution.
And is the paper going to come to us for those considerations in due course?
We'll have to come back and talk to council about funding and getting approval to variation to the contract and details around obviously what that looks like and the dollar.
Can you see my problem? I get all the other stuff, but my problem from where I sit is this is a significant community-based issue that I am only just hearing about for the first time today. And not just for me, but for the other team members that sit around this table. And then also we've got a community board that also has community interest in this space. And you've just talked about a whole lot of different ideas and things, and I'm hearing all of this, and now I'm thankful that our lovely local democracy reporter hasn't kind of heard about this and then rung me up and I've had to learn it from her. But there needs to be a level of, there needs to be some kind of matrix where within the machine, we then get apprised of things that come up with this. Because I don't want to learn it from the Dallas Bay Community Board or from Steve texting me late at night to say, what do you know about Hee Bridge? And I say nothing. Because that's not helpful for us in that world.
I found out in the wine and whiskey bar in Monganui when they looked.
Oh, yeah, but you can find out if you live there, like our homestead there, if you hit that bridge hard enough, there's about a 40 mil rise on their concrete. The tire.
At the minute it's going into it, yeah.
Yeah, our homesteads, all my siblings live there. And that other road through Taimara through Pai Cody coming out at Tupel Bay is a pretty dangerous road. It's not a suitable road, even for a horse.
Yeah.
There's two things here. One is communications for elected leaders, and two is obviously we need to do something about this bridge. And can we please ensure that we can briefing around this or whatever's required, so we have a better understanding about the steps that you've just outlined verbally to us all to keep us surprised of what they expect.
Yeah, something else.
Right, before we leave that, sorry, I have to read your lips. And I do that, which is why my ears don't work when I haven't got my glasses on. There's White Pepper Bridge, but in the last term, we've got 724 bridges and large culvert structures in this district. The only people that have more than us are Waka Kotahi, Auckland and South Farm. So we received a report, and I think we need to drag it out again to refresh elected memories, because I raised about the assessment and renewals of our bridges. We're only funded to do one, maybe two a year. Now, all of these bridges were built back in the war, all coming to the end of their life, and they're all starting to fail. So we heard about heavy. I haven't heard about White Pepper, but it's starting to fill my inbox, and I sent an RFS off to Calvin yesterday, so I want to understand more about that. But are there others out there that we don't know about yet? So can we drag that paper back? It'll be out of date, but it'll give it a flavour. If I'm staring intensely at you, it's because I'm actually reading your face. So just tell me about White Pepper.
Is this the landing?
Whatever landing, yeah.
Yeah. Landing Bridge again was a form part of our programs. We're going on with that. We have awarded that contract and it's been done, I believe, under our general bridge. So I think there's deck replacement works we have to do. And obviously I think historically the surfacing on it has been stripping as well. There's been a lot worse with it, isn't it? There's been some loose timbers on it. So we have been working on that. And making it safe, I suppose, but and trying to align the works with other priorities as well. I think the contractor was working on that. We had to make the bridge safe and then ask them to go to Nova Scotia to finish off works on the bypass route prior to doing closure. Hence it's sort of delayed the work slightly, but we are planning to be in there next week. Reestablishing and so we're working through final traffic management approvals and get some common site around closure of that bridge.
What do we do? Sorry, what do we do about the community? So obviously when we're doing work on a bridge, we have to restrict access. So what do we do in these situations? And you may have answered, and I was too busy trying to focus. What are we doing about the people who live and work in Hihi? And what are we going to do when we close the White Pepper Bridge? And State Highway 10 is already under the pump because of all of the other road closures.
We certainly do try to be proactive in those spaces and front-footed and I suppose engaged with the communities. Hihi has taken us a step back, I suppose, because the circumstances of what it was, we weren't expecting it. With the landing, we've done. I think there's works going on to get information on the website. With that, we've done VMS boards. Granted, there's probably a bit more we could do in that space, to be honest, of being more engaged with the community and other avenues, which, yeah, we'll certainly take on board and try to improve.
The
200 through the chair. That is the original methodology allowed for access to be maintained through the construction. So it was only when we identified that we needed to actually rip up the deck that there became an issue. And that's why the team have been looking at the alternate options, either the bypass road, which is a goat track, or a temporary bridge. Now that we've identified which is the most viable, that will come back to council. In the interim, from a risk perspective, this is like many others in the district, this is a restricted, weighted and speed bridge. So the conditions of those bridges are in place to mitigate the risk of any catastrophic failure. The other thing is, Craig, we were talking about this one in the car on the way up. The actual pylons and foundations of the bridge are sound.
Yeah, it's
the deck that is the issue. But if you take your point you've raised with regards to any high risk items, and figure out a way.
Councillor Court, right of reply.
Thank you.
All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, the motion is carried. Something less contentious, item 5.3, the Pipeline District Council seal extension. Update.
Less contentious. Gracious, sir.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is that the Transport Committee receive. I'll need a mover for that one, please, and that is on page, 90.
I'll move it.
Happy to second, thank you, Ellie. Calvin, anything further to comment before we get into this one?
I think through the chair, this follows a workshop discussion late last year and formal tabling of the review report by council previously, along with an update on seal extensions in the current programs. And recently, this is my omission. I had intended to include this historic briefing note as an attachment in the paper, which provides elected members with background context of how the matrix and decision points that are being come through. So hard copies of those have been distributed.
Councillor McNally.
Yeah, my questions, I just wandered through the report. It won't take too long. Which other council use this matrix?
So through the chair, that I'm aware of, Honourable District Council have a version of a matrix. City Council have a version of a matrix. This matrix has been developed at the request of the elected members back in 2018-19. And the attributes that are on it are focused. It's based on the Wakatahi seal extension matrix with additional attributes added to highlight the specific priorities like dust and the like that were highlighted by councillor.
And the reason we brought it before is page 92, it shows there as being in this matrix upgrade, being completed or close to being completed. And yeah, I still wonder how it got there really. I know that road pretty well. It was a dairy farm and it's been subject to this one. There've been some development contributions that tipped it over the line. Page 96 and 97, if you read through the executive summary, it talks about data provided for the 9 attributes. So they mentioned 9 attributes that they measure very greatly. Majority of the attributes being inaccurate or missing from the scoring, which results in misrepresentation of the carriageway attributes. That's really disturbing. On top of page 96, about the 3rd paragraph from the bottom. Top of page 97, dust matrix prior as well. Last sentence, its function is dependent on the quality of the data entered into it. Next paragraph, we were unable to source information on road maintenance and road accidents. Therefore, these values were left unchanged. Then it gives some recommendations and it says each individual road section should be identified by route position. Where there are significant traffic volume differences between traffic count and traffic estimate, priority should be made to ensure traffic count is carried out in 2 different times. The example I gave was Puirua Road. Current, the traffic count volume is 522 vehicles per day. Yet they relied on a traffic estimate of 104 vehicles today. Right at the end of Puirua Peninsula, you go out to the Markham Cross. There's a lot of people travel out. Surprisingly, if you've gone and sat looking at sheep and a paddock and watch the cars go by, logging and forestry operations should be included in the scoring assessment. Apparently not. Recommend including amenities that are accessed by the unsealed sections, not only when the amenity is located directly adjacent to the unsealed section. So I mean, it doesn't look at Elias Church's Road. I give an example of Rafi Road. Right there, there's a lot of people live there and travel out there for various events. Etc. Second to the bottom paragraph or bullet point on 97, recommend using annual average daily traffic count, and they refer to Henderson Bay Road. Average daily traffic count of 96, and yet December 2020, the count was 280. And that was one of the points I made in my earlier report about these high use summer season roads need more attention prior to the summer season. Well, you can grade them in weeks and all this, but, and then the last one, we therefore recommend that the top 100 roads on the seal extension prioritised list have more regular monitoring, I guess twice yearly, on and off peak traffic counts to validate their position in the matrix. To me, that executive summary is just like, so why are we doing this? It's just, to me, we're missing too much data to actually be able to rely on it at all. So the report's great in that respect. Go to page 101, there's a table at the bottom of that page, and it talks about the average daily traffic moments. If you look at 301 to 400, there's 3 percentage of the total network, I guess, 0.5. 401 to 500, 2 roads, 500 plus 3 roads. So there's 8 of them. And if my maths is right, based on the total unsealed network of 1,666 kilometres, that's 23 kilometres. We need a budget for it. And then page 103, they talk about the seal extension prioritisation attributes. And down the bottom there, the last paragraph says of the 22 attributes, traffic volumes, average annual daily traffic counts, and the percentage of heavies and rain days are the only attributes then that can be accurately quantified without any concerns regarding the reliability of the data. I mean, it just gets worse and worse. For me, it's just, this highlights it's flawed. The matrix is a flawed system. Next page, 104, the paragraph just above the proposed seal extension prioritisation tool. The omission of numerous varied churches and tourism community facilities results in misrepresentation of the carriageway priority. In the box, top of page 105, stage 1 of the assessment is then adjusted for the regional and local value resealing. This refers to the Whangarei District Council seal extension guidelines. So they use a different system.
So through the chair, just with respect to that one, the individual councils use a system that is based on their defined priorities. So WDC's unsealed seal extension program currently is a customer co-funded arrangement. So they prioritise ones where they have more than 80% of the customers on a stretch of road willing to contribute to the cost of seal. So that's what drives their prioritisation. Far North's prioritisation historically has been based on
Through a loan share on rates.
yeah, that's a loan share on rates. So over 5 years. The Far North has been based on dust mitigation and dust impacts. Also just want to point out a number of those points highlighted have or are in the process of being addressed. So an initial 2019 version of the matrix, each road was a single road. Now in the current version that was used for the 21-24, the roads have been sectionalised based on where it's condensed, and the route position is used to provide more convenience.
Then the next question I have then is this report was carried out before I was elected, June 2022. So if you go to page 109, Mototee Road, Pungaroo. The office visited and performed assessment of Mototee Road on Friday, the 10th of June, 2022. They tell you that the road, that's a logging route, they refer to various things, current pavement condition, average, potential for traffic fluctuations low. There's been a massive forestry logging operation coming out of there since then, and that's pre-slip. This report is pre-slip. So it's rubber. In my opinion, all due respect to the writers, it's of no use to us. All it does highlight is our matrix is badly flawed and we need to review it completely. Thank you.
I believe I seconded this one, sorry for the kiddos. Kelvin, I had concerns previously and raised them in our agenda preview, specifically around West Coast Road and the fact that it is on page 92. It states that the site has been referred due to major slips. What I was concerned about around that statement was why an unsealed, why the ceiling extension would get deferred due to slips that are not anywhere near the site that needs to get sealed. That the current slips do have fully loaded logging trucks going through them, so we can get heavy machinery through that site. And also down the road on West Coast Road, we are planning a whole lot of drainage, culvert replacements at West Coast Road in Lena. So I wonder if you could speak to that specifically in the first instance. Now, we've just been given a briefing paper where West Coast Road has been identified as the treatment length being reduced significantly, 2.2 kilometres to 287 metres. If we could get some, once talk about that, but then on the next page over, it says that the length is approximately 930 metres. So we've got 2.2 Ks, 287 metres, 930 metres, and also that it's all just deferred anyway because of slips. If someone could clarify what the heck's going on with West Coast Road and what information I require for that community that I'm from, who are waiting ever so patiently for updates since this first got put through, and we told them that we'd be extending the seal to the church.
So I'll address the discrepancies in this report first, and then hand over to Greg. We are still looking at it, but we have some information. So the table on that report, which shows reduce the treatment length from 2.2 to 0.287 kilometres, that was an explanation of how that site went from ranked 103 in 2019 to ranked 5 in 2021. So through that period, as mentioned, we shortened the treatment lengths to concentrate the shorter lengths on areas with most residential impact. So by having that short RP length, it means it jumped up the rankings. So yeah.
I just saw numbers and that just got given to me.
Yep. No, I again apologize for the subsidised ceiling in 2021 was a program where we put forward these sites, the 930 metres in length to be confirmed was to encapsulate both the Marae and that area. So it was extended to make it a practical. That is what we've put forward for council to approve.
And the very, very big question to answer is the site deferral.
Yep.
Yep, to the chair. West Coast Road, yeah, it was on our programme last year to undertake as a sale extension. And just following I suppose, the resilience work that needed to be done on that, we could get access to it. Decision was made to defer that works because we just couldn't. One, we felt at the time the estimation we had that we couldn't see if you get in there to do the work and then been able to get the works done. So it was deferred.
With respect, we had fully loaded logging trucks utilising that site, and we had to ensure that those major slips in Mototi and Pangaru could handle those trucks going through. So for our own teams to be assisting with making that suitable for fully loaded logging trucks to also be making decisions around being able to get plant in there, it seems contradictory in the decision making that has gone into the site.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's the decision we made at the time to go through that with talking internally with the staff involved. That was the best outcome.
So where is this West Coast Road seal extension sitting at now?
West Coast Road, I understand, is in the next LTP programme to be, will be in the next LTP programme.
So we are pushing it out for another 3 years.
And I understand it'll be in year 1 of the next LTP.
So the council's committed to that 3-year programme, and West Coast Road's not done, we'll definitely.
So it will be a carry forward. Okay, but can you see my concern that I'm raising here, that not at a governance level, a decision has been made to defer something. I'll call it what I see it is a reasonable excuse to not actually have to push on with something.
It's not good enough.
It's not good enough. And it's not good enough for the communities of West Coast Road in North Okianga, who not only have to put up with significant slips that they navigate daily to live their lives and to travel from the North Okianga communities to Matai or to Darwin, but also they have to put up with broken promises or empty promises from this council that I read, where in 2000 you're going to have a seal extension. Yay! Guess what? Fine, it's not happening. Someone's made a decision. We haven't told you that yet, but it's buried within some information we've got here to now know that it actually is at risk of delaying the LTP process, or has to go through LTP again before it's going through, or.
Well, the funding is allocated this year, it will be a carry.
So it'll be a carry.
It'll be a carry forward. At the time the decision was made, we were uncertain about the strength and abilities of, and the ability for those slips to maintain that traffic. It appears this is one of those sites that has slipped through the cracks in the decision-making process, that the decision was made at a certain point of time. Things have changed.
I would expect that decision was made significantly before the timing of the major culvert upgrades that are going to be done down that road then. And that it's not the same decision makers. The left hand isn't speaking to the right hand in our roading department, or what? I think you get my frustration, and we need to do better in this space, and we also need to do better with communications for these people who have to drive on these third world bloody roads daily. And I say that with a conflict of interest because my grandparents are driving this road.
Mr. Mayor.
I've got just one more thing, and we'll go to you, Councillor Peskovich. Now, in terms of this is just the update on the review. Councillor McNally has raised quite a few concerns in this space. Within this, for discussion and next steps, a report to council with a list of prioritised seal extensions for subsequent council approval, recommendations from the independent review, and rating prioritisation. When can we expect what is happening next with this, and when it will be coming to council for consideration?
So at the start of that next steps, and sorry, it's not clear. We review the matrix every 3 years based on what funding is approved in the LTP and what priorities council determine they want to focus on. So the first step in this process for any update of the matrix is confirmation of any funding in the LTP. Okay. So as soon as council confirm what, if any, funding for seal extensions is in the LTP, the workshop will be organised to confirm council's priorities for that funding, and then that will flow into the next steps.
Thank you for that, Calvin. Again, just finally, before we go to Councillor Peskovich, the reason why I asked that is because I'm very conscious of time, despite that long time I took to have a bit of a rant. But what I don't want this paper is just receiving the report, being able to comment on the report and the recommendation within it. What we are not discussing today, or what is not on the table, is whether or not we are keeping or changing, or you can highlight some of those things that come through the report you will expect following LTP, and whether we give budget to this, that conversation to follow. Councillor Peskovich.
Yeah, I just had a question to the who mandated the change in the carry forward for West Coast Road to be put into the next LTP.
So through the chair, West Coast Road's been highlighted as an at-risk project. So we're currently working through the process of putting it forward. It's been reported as an at-risk project. So that goes to council to approve those carry forwards as part of the carry forward process.
Okay, so we've been at council for 18 months now, and the slip's been there for
August 22.
okay, so that's going to be 2 years. Okay, and then so if it goes into the next LTP, when will that slip be addressed?
Sorry, we're talking about the slip or the seal extension?
The actual slip.
Oh, sorry, the slip is in a. Sorry.
No,
Sorry, the slip is in. So the slip is in confidential, so we'll if we can talk about it there.
Okay, what
There are
about,
a number of points in that paper that can be made public following that conversation. So I think it's best to hold that conversation as part of that paper. But with respect, the timing of those two slips, the two West Coast slips are identified as two of the top three prioritised in the complex phase 3, and are the first to be constructed in the phase 3 program. So
of the next LTP?
So the slip program is somewhat independent of the LTP. So that is emergency works funding, so it continues through the LTP process.
All right, we'll go to councillor Court, then councillor Research, then councillor Arkina. Councillor Court.
You'll be pleased to know that I'm mindful of the time. So I'm going to keep my comments quite short. I welcome a comprehensive review of the matrix to make it strong and dependable. This is my baby, my baby, my idea originally. Because I've sat here and I listened to submission after submission after submission from residents within on any section of our 1600, 28 kilometres of unsealed network that they want to addressed. And as a result of that, we started the National Working Party to look at the impacts of dust on human health. And that led to this document. My concern is that we're trying to make it into something that it isn't. It's immaterial whether they harvest a forest, unless that forestry truck is producing dust that is impacting on the health of the residents that live on that road. It's immaterial for a lot of the things in here, whether it's a tourism route or the ecology or whatever else happens on the road, unless it's impacting on the health of the people that live on that road. So when I read this report, I was really concerned that I felt they just had to fill in some pages to make it look like it justified their living. And I was offended. I was offended when it said the traffic counts were validated. They were. I was offended when it said that the houses were measured. They were. When this was brought to council in 2019 at the meeting, we were really clear that this was, in the first instance, a desktop assessment, and the top 10 roads would be ground truthed. And the staff went out and ground truthed them to validate the data. I just wanted to say, remind my colleagues, that there are over 40,000 individual pieces of data that inform the dust matrix. It is organic document that will change every single year based on changes in this district. So if we're going to receive reports, and Calvin's going to take this report away and report back to us, I would like this report to be peer reviewed in the first instance, because I think it makes an enormous assumption that we're not based in any fact. And I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to get sued today.
I will remind elected members too that Anne has supplied a lot of the background reporting that has come through over the many years for this and it's still available.
And usually that's how you manage to decipher it all and upload it.
Go to councillor Research, then councillor Arkina, then councillor Koukou.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mockle. I actually think it's a good report. You know, actually, it highlighted some of the concerns I've heard around the table with Matty and I that actually pushed to actually get a review on it. One, because of the complexity of the numbers there and whether they're verified. I actually think, and we heard a lot of complaints, I actually think it's a good report. And it does, as Councillor McNally has pointed out, it does highlight just how useful actually this is. Now, I know this for another time, we're not going to make a decision today that we just received the report. But I do think we should look seriously at how we actually do unbudgeted seal extensions. I think it's a great report. I'm not surprised at the comments being made here, colleague who just spoke. And I do think it highlights the shortcomings and these things we need to address. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Rakina.
Kia ora mai tātou. Yeah, just speaking to that item on the agenda and hearing the passion as well from the kahika. It annoys me a lot, to be honest, because when I look at the chart, and I'm not too sure if even supporting or not supporting this item on our agenda is even going to do anything, to be honest. But I do have a heavy heart, and I'm unable to lend my support to the item on the agenda regarding the postponement of the seal extension on West Coast Road, which, as you mentioned, Calvin, was previously put into the prioritisation list. It deeply troubles me that once again, the residents have to sit to the side or have, sort of have the information come after this meeting to say that it's going to be pushed out for another few years. For far too long, the communities along the West Coast Road and all our smaller communities in the Hokianga have endured the hardships inflicted by the slips that have been there for over a year, and the continuation of the really, really bad roads. Their daily lives are made by constant threat of danger and inconvenience, the health hazards posed by the hazardous conditions they are forced to navigate. We as a council, we literally hold people's lives in our hands, and we cannot continue to ignore the urgent needs of these communities who rely on safe and accessible roads for their basic necessities that we living in town can take for granted. The situation along West Coast Road is dire, and then the consequences of our inaction are dire as well. We're not just talking about inconvenience, we're talking about people's lives being put at risk every single day, children struggling to get to school safely, families unable to access essential services, and individuals facing health issues that have been mentioned by Councillor Court, and we've heard about the report that's been done around the effects on dust and on the health of residents who live alongside the dusty roads. Councillor Court has also shed light on the harmful effects that dust has on our health. As I mentioned, it's appalling that we're subjecting our residents to such conditions, knowing full well the detrimental impact it can have on their well-being. When I look at the prioritised roads on the list on the chart, it's disheartening to see that West Coast Road, it doesn't, I can see along Brass Road, Parapara Road, we have planned, complete, so my assumption is that there have been business cases built up for that. But when I look next to West Coast Road, Kohukohu, there's absolutely nothing until the third box that says site deferred due to major landslips. At the end of the day, I will just say that I'm hugely disappointed that it's gotten to the point where there's just no follow-up on it. And as you've mentioned, Calvin, the information or what's been, those who have supported it to be pushed back, it sort of slipped through the cracks and none of it has come through governance. So I'll just say at the end of this that I'm hugely disappointed to see this piece in particular in our agenda. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Rakina, Councillor Kappa, and then Councillor McNally.
Thank you very much. Look, I just wanted to say that Councillor Court's baby has grown. And has grown to the extent that it's showing the withers of the conditions of our environment. But I'm also grateful to yourself, Calvin, for actually engaging with another consultancy group to look at the matrix that has been in front of us, which they have actually highlighted other contributions to the attributes that need to be looked at.
And those were, I suppose, some of the missing components that when first talked about or discussed around the matrix, there was what they introduced as something new for us to consider. I'm really looking forward to a place where we can actually discuss how this matrix can be brought in line with our area. As I heard you say that each other councils have aligned it to their own areas. So I look forward to that discussion that makes this matrix workable, and it allows us to eliminate any notion in the public's eye that there's favoritism around who gets dust matrix and who doesn't. So thank you very much for that, and I look forward to it.
We have Councillor Radich and Deputy Minister Stratford.
Local, the metric system has caused big divisions in our community. Big divisions. Whether it's based on dust, traffic, or our basis. And I can tell you people right now, we've had roads tar sealed that should never be tar sealed under the metric system. As far as I'm concerned, to me, it's flawed. It's flawed. After the Carrigan meeting on Friday, I travelled to Ruru Road to see why that road is going to be sealed. Way up now, backs of Takawhi. Go through there, and who do I meet on the road? Franz Wagner, who works for the council and is involved with the metric system. I asked him, why is this road being tar sealed? And he went on about the metric system. Houses close. So I checked the houses as I drove through. It's 6.5 kilometres long. That's a long way to be tar sealed, especially when it should be tar sealed. Because in that 6.5 kilometres, I was very lenient by saying there was 11 houses were inside the 80 metres. 11. 6.5 kilometres. You know, I just drove away and I said to France, how can you compare that with Papua Road or Gills Road or Dick Smith Loop Road? And I'm not going to mention Spoons Road, because if I want to have my road tar sealed, everyone will say, there's Radich, bloody Radich. He got his road tar sealed. I'm different. So I hide away from Spoons Road. But I said to France, what about these roads? More important, the house is more closer, etc. No answer. We drove away. And here we are, we're going to have Rural Road tar sealed. How unfair can we be? How unfair can we be with this bloody metric system? My solution to it is to throw it out. Throw it out, and to be left up to the elected members in their own community. They know which roads should be tar sealed. And I listened back at Tamati there. He knows what roads in his area of West Coast that should be tar sealed. Likewise, I in my area. Yet we go back to this metric system. What a bloody corrupt and thought out for that is.
We'll go to Deputy Mayor Stratford.
Calvin, I just have a question regarding West Coast Road. Is it still going to be a 930 metre length from Te Karaka Road?
Councillor Neil Church.
But I believe it's as council approved.
That's not 930 metres from Te Karaka, from the intersection of West Coast Road, Te Karaka, to Pato Kiriti Me, Pato Hill. That
I'll see.
does not go.
Through the chair, again, I'd have to confirm, but I think we had the budget 1.3 million, and from memory, I thought we were sailing closer to 2 point something kilometres, but again, I'd have to check on that. So it was a substantial job, and it was based on the 1.3 million. I would suspect it would be much greater than that.
So probably to Waiho.
So we can, we can have a look during the break and.
I just want to understand where the slips are, because I haven't actually been out for a while.
We are planning a visit to that community. That
To do it, Louis?
all that.
Yes.
Welcome to.
Yes.
This is the hot ticket item. Thank you. So I've just got a couple of notes here. So a reminder that Ruaroa there, it's only sectional that is being extended sealed, not the full length. And also a reminder that our dust matrix tool was about human health, not about where we should seal. I know that there are intercorrelations in there, but they are separate tools. In any case.
Sorry.
I think we're actually all speaking the same language, but when this was developed, it was a dust tool. It's all it was, a dust tool. It's now got a name change, and I think when it's changed to seal prioritization, seal extension prioritization. So if you're talking about extending seal, then yes, you should talk about forestry and all of that other things. But if we're talking about human health and dust, we're talking about something else. And I'm no longer clear that in the debate, if we're actually clear about what this tool is supposed to do.
What I'll ask for is, following LCP, that there is a comprehensive workshop and follow-up paper to get us all on the same boat. But we'll go to Steve for a round.
Sorry, before you were answering my question, I did want to just clarify that roads that aren't completed, that are still being scoped, when do we have an opportunity to say yay or nay to those? Because you did bring that up in the workshop that we had, the ones that were in the 3-year pre-program.
So I believe there's only one, I think.
Oromahui and West Coast from this current tranche. Oromahui was why I didn't sort of do the haka for Oromahui was because it was low lying and flood prone. And so it's gone back into reassessment.
So Oromahi has gone back in for resilience improvements as well, because actually sealing it is an viable option. So we're looking at that one as a separate one. The West Coast Road will be part of the decision on carry forwards. And any other.
Ruaroa and Koukou.
Ruaroa is in progress at the moment.
Councillor McNally, I don't think you want us in the right of supply.
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for your input, everyone.
Okay, and we'll put that receiving the report to the vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed? Mentions. The motion is carried. We now go to item 6 on page 118. Resolution to exclude the public. My plan is that we move into PX and then we'll go to a lunch break. We'll come back and complete our 3 committee items and go into our workshop. So basically our moving is to exclude the public for item 6.1, the previous minutes. Item 6.2, Fernfleet Road, crash report. And item 6.3, programs request for complex sites. Please. Thank you, Vivian Stratford. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, the motion is carried. We can please stop our recording and look excluded section of the meeting. We considered 3 reports, our previous minutes, 6.1, 6.2, receiving the Fernfleet Road fatal crash report. We'll be releasing the resolution that came with that with any figures redacted. And 6.3, emergency slips program report and request for complex sites. For 2 West Coast Road slips and a Farmline Road slip. We will be releasing that full report with the resolution with the numbers redacted to protect our procurement processes for the public who have been waiting to see what we did in PX. I'll now close this off
with, here. Sorry, councillor Radich.
You're going to close.
Oh, close the Karakia
Just
now.
before that, just West Road of Kills Road, the Murray family are there. They're related to me. Now, they're having a lot of dust trouble on the road, and they've asked me to ask council, what is the procedure regarding sealing that road? They'll pay for it. So where do I go from here?
We'll take that up with NTA staff, because we do have options available.
Yeah. We have a policy, I can't remember the number of it. Which is what we applied to Hupara Road and some others. If the residents meet a certain amount of the cost, we pick up Waka Kotahi subsidy.
If they want to pay for the whole lot.
If they want to pay for the whole lot, you would just need to consider the ongoing maintenance costs of that.
Cool, what we'll do is get Calvin to look into the appropriate policies that we have available, options available to see that happen. Right, let us pray. May the seas be harmless and the ship of stolen ducks across thy path, may the whole 10 million